At this time, I'd invite our guests to say the national anthem. Oh my gosh, Pledge of Allegiance. Old habits die hard. I do it so often.
Built it out.
Yeah. Last meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to say that's the first time I've made that faux pas, but it's not. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Oh, Ty.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, Phil moved, Kelly seconded. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Was that Andy?
It was.
I'm sorry. So it was Andy, excuse me, thank you. Organizational items. Do we have any parent, family, community engagement opportunities anyone would like to talk about and or announcements? Okay. Well, it is sort of like a Happy New Year. July is the end of one fiscal year and the start of the next, so Happy New Year to everyone. Couple of announcements. There's several thank yous in here that I want to make sure and pass around. And the other announcement, you know, we have a lot of kiddos. All of that's public, but I won't name it here just because our duty for confidentiality is different, and I haven't been given specific permission to reference names, but we have a lot of kiddos in our district that are fighting some pretty serious stuff, so just want to keep them and their families in our thoughts and our prayers for support. There's been several benefits that have gone on this summer in our community, and I think there are plans to continue for that. So just, there are things out there. Like I said, I don't want to announce things specifically because I haven't been given permission, but we want to keep those kiddos in our thoughts, especially with the new school year starting. May I have an approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
That was Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Andy moved and Kelly seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. We have recognitions, and we have a bunch, which is awesome. I have to bring my phone with me. The first one is for one of our junior high teachers, Amanda Vogt. Amanda's here with us tonight. She has been awarded, she's a grant recipient, and the two donors were Garmin, yes. Correct?
Yes.
And then the Rural Technology Fund.
Yes.
And this is for an exciting STEM project. Yes. So Amanda, could you just elaborate a little bit about what that's going to look like for robotics in your classroom?
Yeah, we are going to be able to actually fund our robotics program to have Tetrix robots to build. So in the past, it's been just programming our spherical robots, which we're going to try and get some more of those with some other things I've got trying to get come through. But with the Garmin Educator Fund and the Rural Tech Fund, we're going to be able to get, I think, 5 kids, because it's about $5,000 total that we're getting between those two funds.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate all of our teachers, and then going that extra mile to seek those grants that are out there then takes extra work. So definitely wanted to call attention to that. So on this day, July 19th, 2023, the Board of Education, which supports and promotes excellence in all school activities, would like to recognize and congratulate Amanda Vogt for the recipient of these grant awards. Congratulations. Next up, we have the wrestling coaches here. Come on up, guys. And Kit, could you come up as well? Good evening. Good evening. You only have to give like 3-minute speeches per person.
I'm a 2.5-minute kind of guy.
So, and Sarah Johnson is not with us tonight, but we'll make sure that she receives her award too.
Bryce Shoemaker too.
And Bryce Shoemaker, yes, thank you. Can you talk about this award?
Yeah.
Coach Harris?
Yeah, I will. The NWCA gives awards for coaching and assistant coaching staffs. And so they just were selected as a national. Well, they were state in the Midwest section and then national. So they've won every level. And our girls program has a lot of respect. And a lot of it is the coaching group we have is just really stands out compared to other programs. We have a great group of coaches, and I can go on and on about how important that is, but we all know that. But they're also all Baldwin High alum. Everyone is a BHS alumnus.
Baldwin
Wrestle,
built.
yeah, wrestling. They're Baldwin built, wrestle in our program. They're not only were they wrestle their coach, but they're also friends of mine. We get along so well. We work together. We have a group text and constantly discuss and plan and whatever. And so we have a lot of fun together, and I think that shows with our team members. And I was very lucky to have them as coaches. I kind of see us as a coaching group. Everybody has their own strength. They're kind of equally combined to make a really fun coaching staff. So I was really honored that they got recommended for this at the state level, and then as I wrote it up, it was easy to sell their accolades. So
Awesome. Well, anytime coaches get awards, that's awesome. To receive national recognition doesn't just shine a light on the program and the district, but most importantly, it also shines a light on all the kids that you coach. That's wonderful. I'm going to do all of it in one swoop and name all the names, whether you're here or not here, so we can do a very grand form of applause. But the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, July 19th, the Board of Education would like to recognize and congratulate the following: Jesse Austin, Levi Green, Sarah Johnson, Ben Morgenstern, and Bryce Shoemaker for the NWCA National High School Girls Wrestling Assistant Coaching Staff of the Year. Congratulations. Please join me with a round of applause. Thank you for coming. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, I don't see her here. The last one, I'll just do this from seated. We wanted to make sure we'll mail this out to Bailey Stewart. We'll get that to her. But Bailey Stewart with McGrew Real Estate did a really neat promotion over the summer to highlight teachers with a stand-up paddleboard lesson. It was a free giveaway. It was sort of in conjunction with a social media campaign. And so anytime a local business, again, goes above and beyond, we sure want to extend our appreciation for that. And stand-up paddleboarding is awesome. So thank you, Bailey, for that. The last two recognitions we have Safe Night After Prom contributions, and there's a whole list. Let me put that. I'm going to read it off. Safe Night After Prom took place in April, and just as we wrap up one fiscal year and move into the next, wanted to make sure there's been lots of thank yous, but wanted to make sure and do another one. In addition, then we also have some other donations, so we'll do all of those in one swoop as well. All of these included the following. So in addition to the banner supporters, the banner is hung in the gym and will be there all year, but we're just going to read off the names. The top dog, which was the $500 and up donation entities, included the following: the Baldwin Education Foundation, Farm Bureau, Kelly Neufeld, Heartland Plumbing, Lang Dirt Services, the BHS Speak Club, and Warden Cornerstone Church. Our level 2 supporters, which was $200 to $499, was Club Palmyra Soccer, the Drummond family, the Brandon and Christina Johnson family, Marland Construction, Maley and Sons Construction, Neosho County Community College, Oral Surgery Kansas, Dr. Harvey, Scraper family, Sunflower Aesthetics. And then our level 1 SNAP supporters, which was $100 to $200, included the Baldwin Academy of Dance and Voice, the Baldwin City Community News, the Berg family, the Butel family, the Bethel Smith family, the Dick family, the Gunther family, the Johnson family, Ranch Bar Orthodontics, Rice Precision Manufacturing, Rodruck Chiropractic, the Rimmer family. Along with that, I wanted to make sure and recognize Rob Harris, did a $500 chuck-a-duck at one of the games, and he was the winner, and he donated all of the money back, which was very kind of him. And Pitt's Photography donated all of their services for prom walk. So we just had an abundance of generosity for that program, and lots of extra help. If Kit was here, still here, the Baldwin Bulletin online was a huge help in getting information out. But even though those were the top supporters, so many chili feeds happened along the way. So I hope people know that there is also gratitude for every batch of brownies, every Ziploc of puppy chow that was sold along the way. All of that works together for the benefit of kids. So thank you so much for that. Other donations this month include Warden Cornerstone Church made a donation for the food service program, so we wanted to make sure and note that. And then Megan has been tracking all of this and sent this to me. These are donations for regarding tax payments that people were refunded as a result of BOTA, and a lot of people have along the way been mailing checks back to the district, which is appreciated. A couple of these folks that are board members, and specifically I know they don't want to be recognized, and I'm not going to read amounts. If anybody's curious, it's all a matter of public record, and they can go find that out. But I will read the rest of these recognitions. Kent and Kathy Miller, Jacqueline F. Robbins, how do I pronounce this?
I have no idea.
Bonifaci Denora, I think that's right. Peggy and Dan Harris, Roger and Nancy Arnold, Gerona Farm LLC, Ralph and Roma Earls, Walter W. Pennell, Galen and Marta Jardin, Adam and Erica Bench, Ellen Owen, Patricia D. Boyd, Barb and Harold Johnson, Kelly and Shanta Kemp, John Bynes, John and Marilee Bynes, Marcia O'Neill, Mark and Jill Dodge, Paula and Jerry Moore. There have been others that have sent things in and have specifically asked that we not announce their names, but again, much gratitude. There were some corresponding notes that came in with some of those that can be passed around. So how about just a general round of applause for, again, whether it's writing a check or volunteering, making brownies. There's so many forms of generosity in this community. We are blessed with abundance. So thank you. Round of applause, please. All right. We do not have any student letters, shockingly, in the month of July, so we will go through the Celebrating USD 348 Voices and move on to the educational program highlight. Mr. Dodge is going to be talking to us about TASN.
Okay, so this is not as exciting in the sense of the work that's done in the building with kids on a daily basis, but where this is exciting is the work that goes behind the scenes in terms of providing a systematic response for students across the district. This dates back to last summer, a year ago in June, when we met for our first academic team summit. And the building administration across the district had stated, we're working hard to provide kids with what they need, but the systemic approach to it is not there. We're trying to move away from a district of schools and moving to a school district. So when a student leaves and graduates the primary center, there's a support system that they had that, well, they'll come up to the intermediate center. There's a support system for them there. It might look a little bit different, but there is that system of support. Likewise to the junior high and up to the high school. And at the elementary level, it's a little easier because you have a lot of control over the schedule that's there. The junior high level, at the high school level, it becomes a little more complex because you're now functioning around bell schedules. You're functioning around students at the high school level that may be taking classes concurrently for dual credit. And so this bell schedule to provide student supports for a variety of needs becomes challenging there, but there's still a need to look at it, and there's still a need to provide those systemic approaches. So we reached out to TASN, the Technical Assistance Support Network that operates through the state. And a free service they have is an opportunity to go through and completely realign our processes to make sure that what we're doing is systemic. And so we met with Amy De La Rosa for about 5 or 6 meetings over the course of the school year. And so what I wanted to do is just touch base on the highlights from some of those meetings and some of the practices that we were able to learn from these TAS and support meetings for multi-tier systems of support for students and how they've spilled over into the way we kind of operate as an academic team. One of the first things we did with Amy on September 29th was develop team norms. Essentially, candor, vulnerability, and non-judgmentalism was essential. We needed to be able to have open, direct, honest conversations. We needed to be able to put ourselves out there and recognize that it's okay to admit if something is not the way it should be, that there's others in the room that can help us find those solutions. And then the non-judgmentalism piece is we're not there to break each other down. We're there to build each other up. And so that piece was important. And with that, we also tie in a lot of humor, a lot of laughing. And those things were what kind of helped guide us throughout the course of the year. We talked about what consensus should look like. There are times where the feedback that they provide, the input they provide, helps me make a decision for the district that we can operate under. And then there are times where it's, okay, we need to all be on the same page because what happens in one building has a collateral impact on another building. And so we all need to operate on the same page. And then from there, we looked at some student data, determined our collective why, which essentially was doing whatever we can to help students be successful. And I think one of the most important pieces there is developing an action and communication plan. And what this really was it's an accountability piece where at our meetings we identified moving forward what we were going to take back, whether it was to teachers, whether it was to the community, whether it was to the board, and assign someone a responsibility to it as well as a date that it needed to be done. And when we would come back, we would check in, how did we do? And that created a mechanism that is spilling over into how we operate as an admin team. One of the first things we do when we meet as an academic team is talk about what is it that have been gleaned either from our teachers or our BLT teams that we need to discuss before we get into our agenda. And then at the end of our meeting, before we go back to our buildings, what is it from this meeting do we need to take back to our teachers within the building to help that communication cycle? In November, we met again and we discussed the various stakeholder groups, and that helped us develop that continuous feedback loop that we also leveraged as helping to create our mission statement, if you remember. And so from that conversation, we were able to identify, our mission statement being that hashtag Baldwin built. It's not a brand. It's not a cool hashtag that can be searched on social media. It represents our efforts. It is, but it's more than that. It's the description, the adjective that what we're doing is to prepare students to positively impact the world through academic, social, emotional, and behavioral successes. And that's what it is we're doing within the district. And one of the biggest components to that is when we start discussing Dr. John Hattie's research on meta practices, those highly effective practices within education that are there. And we went over his website, this MetaX website, where you see the different instructional practices that are there and then how it correlates to student success. And one of the biggest factors that contributes to student success is that collective efficacy. And that's that believing that we can do it. That teachers' belief in students that they can be successful has a high correlation to student success. And that kicked off almost that culture for the work that was to come throughout the balance of the month. We came to a consensus of what our mission statement should be, and I talked about that in January, where we finalized that and presented it to the board. We also engaged in conversations in terms of when we're developing a master schedule, what are those non-negotiables? When you're talking about providing intervention opportunities, there are non-negotiables that need to be built into a schedule that despite what takes place, we need to preserve time for this. And the two things that came out from that was one, collaboration time. Teachers need to be able to sit down together and go over student data and determine what are we doing for students and what supports do they need to move forward, and then following up in a cycle of data review to make sure what we're doing for them is working in a positive way. And if it's not, what do we need to change? And the other side of that is also providing that time to provide those supports and those interventions. Let's see. We did some more reflection on Hattie's research on best evidence-based instructional practices. And if you ever go to his website, it's a huge warehouse. And what they're looking at is they're not saying eliminate all of them, but we're saying anything that's a 0.4 or higher within his practices, that's the sweet spot, if you will, for helping students be successful. And so that's where the collective efficacy, that belief that you can be successful, has a high correlation there. In February, we did a mid-year data review. We discussed instructional leadership, and we began the second phase of behavior and social-emotional MTSS work. We started talking about what do we need to do within our buildings to make sure that we have that systemic approach that's there. In April, we reviewed the family engagement survey data that was there. And what that told us is, we're doing a lot of things really, really, really well. But communication from the school to home is an area that across the board that we want to make sure that we're improving. And if you're at the secondary level, believe it or not, the students want schools to contact their families to tell them how successful they are. And at families at the high school level, they want to be communicated to if their child's not being successful. And so that's some of the big piece from a communication side of things that we learned from that. We discussed a comprehensive assessment plan, and I think that's been very helpful for Ashley to develop. These are the assessments that we'll offer throughout the different phases of the years that help identify when we are going to screen our students and then how we'll respond based on the screening data and how we can use that to check and make sure that they're growing at a pace that they need to grow, as well as build in the state assessment window, the ACT window to that. We also talked about the importance of fidelity, and we did an article an article study on that. The final meeting took place on June 5th, and we talked about the importance of walkthroughs, and we've had a walkthrough process in the past that was very detailed. I think it had 19 or 20 different indicators when you're going through to do a walkthrough. And what a walkthrough should be is a 3 to 5 minute snapshot into a classroom to see how things are going. And you're not going in there to judge or evaluate. What you're doing is you're trying to identify what practices are being done at that time. And if you're seeing a trend of similar practices over time, how can that guide what we do as professional development to make sure if we're leveraging a particular strategy frequently, let's make sure we're doing it the way that's going to yield the highest benefit. And so we talked about how we can narrow that down and streamline that into something that doesn't have as many indicators, but also focuses back to what it is we want to see when we're going into classrooms. From there, we also talked about the accelerators for change. And I'll be honest with you, the accelerators for change is what's most important from my end of things. And what this is they identify 5 different components that go into change leadership, or when you're seeking to change or move forward. And the 5 different categories are creating a sense of urgency, create a communication and vision, form a coalition and empower others, plan, create, celebrate short-term wins, and consolidate and embed change into culture. And when you do that, you get that sustained improvement. If one of those pieces are missing, you get some disgruntledness taking place. So if there is not a sense of urgency, then there's only pockets of change. If you're missing the communication and vision, then there's confusion. If you're missing the coalition and you're not empowering others, then you're creating anxiety or frustration. If planning and creation and celebrating those short-term wins doesn't take place, then people aren't motivated. If you're not consolidating and embedding change within your culture, then it becomes fragmented. And so that was a cool visualization to look at. And from my end of things, as we're trying to see this next phase go through, I'm going to do my level best to make sure those 5 components are there so that we can keep that change in a sustained improvement manner. So that wrapped us up from that through June 5th. Where this has spun or where this is taking us into the next school year, there are two opportunities that we have that we are working with TASN on for next year. Next year, we've got Emily Kessler, who's an implementation specialist, who, again, is a specialist in the area of behavior and social emotional supports through MTSS. So she's going to guide us through a training module that will help us take our building leadership and staff to help create that change and build those systemic approaches within their individual buildings. So we'll meet once, about 5 different times throughout the course of the year as I say, level groups. So junior high and high school will meet for an hour or for a period of time in the afternoon. The elementary building leadership teams will meet in the mornings as we build this together. So that's a really cool concept to it that we can take this structure and move forward. The second piece that our administrators have asked for is training on professional learning communities. This is something that Rick DeFore's work dating back to about 20 years ago, and how it's continued to evolve and thrive with the idea of how can we identify how students are doing and what can we do to help them when they are finding success, when they're not successful. And so it's a really great model. So what we need to do is talk with, as an admin team, they've given us a plan. I just got it last week, so I'm going to share it with our administrators at our next admin team meeting. But it'll give us a framework as leaders that we can take that PLC model and lead that within our building, within the buildings that they have. So that is MTSS TASN realignment in a nutshell.
Awesome.
So.
Question I have about
Yes.
that, and you may have not even gotten this far, so maybe premature, but the professional learning communities, is the idea of that to keep it building specific or district-wide? For example, do we connect how we're learning math at the elementary level so that the high school geometry instructor has connection to that?
I think the answer is yes, over time. Essentially what you're doing initially is identifying, the content area, what is it we need our let's say our third graders to know and be able to do, and how are we going to determine if they know it and what our responses will be if they do or if they don't. And that would then lead into fourth grade's conversation, up to fifth grade's conversation. So there is that need to do a scope and sequence to make sure that spills over as it moves on to the next level. But initially, we have to get the grade levels having their conversations so
That makes
they
sense.
can filter it out. So
Thank you.
you bet.
Any other questions?
So we're excited about it. It was a fun year, and again, the sense of humor, the ability to have candor, to not judge one another, and to just learn from each other has been great. What TASN asked us to do about, Ashley, when was that? About January or so that they reached out to us. They have an annual conference in, I believe it's in October every year, that they do for their groups that are going through this realignment work. And they've asked us to present at that conference. So we've got a team of 4 of us, Derek, Ashley, Nicole, and I will be there. And they've asked us to present. So we'll be presenting on how you leverage those 3 norms, as well as adding humor into it to help create that change leadership for districts that are considering this. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I have a couple more minutes in case anyone else wants to sign up, but we'll go ahead and switch to public comment. We have 2 folks signed up. I'll read our policy. Public comment is an opportunity for the board to listen. In accordance to district policy BCBI, this is the agenda time during the meeting when an individual may address the board. The board welcomes up to 10 patrons to speak. Each of the patrons will have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Those wishing to make public comment are asked to sign up on the night of the meeting prior to 7 p.m., with the exception of not discussing specific matters related to identifying students or staff by name. Due to confidentiality considerations, there are no restrictions regarding the subject matter the patron wishes to share with the board. Also, if a delegation of persons comes to discuss a single issue, every effort should be made to avoid redundancy by each person, stating only new facts or new perceptions during their allotted time. Board members are not to respond during this time. Again, this is the time established in the meeting for board members to prioritize listening to the public. And first up, we have Mr. Wright, and the topic of public comment is the family church rental. Mr. Wright?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. My name is Zach Wright. So I am on staff at Family Church in Wellsville, and I know that our interest in renting the PAC is an old business item that will be discussed tonight. I apologize that I wasn't able to make it to the last meeting. One thing that, and I did send an email to all of you guys just making myself available if there were questions. One thing that I did want to highlight that I felt like maybe wasn't addressed at last month's meeting was just the level of investment of Baldwin residents in Family Church. So we have about 75 residents that are driving to Wellsville to attend church weekly now. So I'm a 2010 Baldwin graduate. My wife was a 2010 Baldwin grad, and she went to Baker and studied elementary education there. So we call Baldwin home. We're invested in Baldwin, and so we've been asked to be the campus pastors of Family Church Baldwin. And so I know that obviously I'm available tonight if there's questions that I can help address related to concerns of us using the PAC. But I did just want to highlight that, we are we're not just a church from another community that's wanting to come in and use a Baldwin facility. We are for Baldwin. We want to serve Baldwin. We want to partner with the school. How can we better the school, better the community? And so there is a significant level of investment in why we decided to bring a church to Baldwin.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is Mr. Snyder. Topic of public comment is the 23-24 budget.
Hey, good evening. I just wanted to, as we get ready for playing the budget for this year, just want to bring some perspective. Every year the budget goes up and up. And same thing with school and with the county. And I think people are having a heightened level of frustration on it. I'm sure everyone got the notice that the county's going to be raising their taxes. But they're trying to be positive about it and saying they're not raising the mill levy. But we all know how mills work now after the bond issue. And so they're going to keep mills flat, but because the valuation is going higher, everyone's paying more on taxes. So I would ask the board that as you decide on the budget, that we really, the patrons of USD 348 really expect a higher level of transparency than what we've seen in the past when it comes to budgeting. Last year, you guys had the full intent of raising taxes 16%, which is a very high number, by the way. And instead, you only got 4%, and that was much sadness involved with that. There's a 4% increase over the previous year. Just to provide some perspective, if you look at it, so this is according to Kansas Department of Education, as compiled by the Kansas Policy Institute. Between 2005 and 2022, enrollment's actually down 2% in the district, but spending per pupil has increased 72% during that same time. I guess I would ask, have we seen results that match that increase in spending? So I'm not opposed to increasing in taxes if we got to have to take care of our schools and to fund education, but we need very good, clear, and transparent reasons for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else add? Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to financial report. Food service management. This is the RFP process that has been taking place. Mr. Olert will walk us through.
Yeah, I say good morning, but sorry. So, yes, several items this evening. First, start off with the RFP process that we've been going through for the food service management company. So, our RFPs were due on June 30th, and our committee met on the 5th of July, graciously after the holiday, and met, reviewed, and scored each vendor accordingly. We did have a total of 4. One was actually just a letter saying, we appreciate the opportunity, but no thanks. But we did have 3 that actually submitted the RFP in full. And so this evening we'll go over that as far as the groups for TAIR, OPA, and Southwest Food Services. And overall, again, the scorings are good. The RFPs were complete. So this evening, I know as we talked about in the last meeting, as far as what the direction of the board would be, with the interest either moving forward with the food service management company or keeping things in-house.
So when we did meet, the top scoring organization was TAIR. Through the consensus of the four of us. So it was Tony, Kelly, Hefner, Dan Wallsmith, and myself after meeting. It was a unanimous consensus that we continue with our in-house food service program. Based on the presentation at the June board meeting, the suggested changes to increase student participation, and some of the leadership and culture that's there over the summer food service program. I think they deserve a shot to continue with their ideas.
Any discussion or questions?
I move that we reject all food service RFP bids.
Is there a second?
Second.
Chris has moved and Kelly has seconded to reject all RFP bids, thereby maintaining food service in-house. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. No one's opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, Nate. Milk bid.
Yes, so actually the next two are going to be part of our food service bidding process for the annual bid. I'm going to ask Charlie to go ahead and come on up, and since she is the expert. The first one actually is coming up is our milk bid that we'll cover. We solicited, I say, if I remember correctly, 3 to 5 different vendors in the process. Just like last year, we have one that submitted a bid, which was Highland again this year. So again, that will be our recommendation that we move forward and accept or seek approval for that this evening. I don't know if you want to add anything with the milk bid, but it's pretty straightforward, just like we had last year. Does the board have any questions on the milk bid piece to that?
Yes, I'm just curious why we decided.
Regional, my understanding is we bid out to AD, Highland, there was a couple others that were there. Typically, that's just what we only have that one vendor. And a lot of it is, again, just logistics of delivery pieces.
If I remember right, last year we had a similar
Exactly
issue.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had one last year that said, again, thanks, but thanks for the opportunity, but no bid was presented.
Any other questions? If not, we would need a motion to approve the bid.
I make a motion to approve the milk bid from Highland for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Tony has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the milk bid from Highland Dairy for the 23-24 school year. All those in favor of approving the bid, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Good, thank you. So number 3 is our food service. Really, this is product bid, so this is not milk and juice. This is our line items, different, again, products that we have that we use within the district. We primarily were using Cisco. We had Benny Keith, that was kind of our secondary if we had issues with purchasing an item that may have not been available at the time. We chose this year to go out to bid, and we did have, we just actually had one bid, which was Benny Keith. So to answer your question, I know you probably have a question there, Kelly, on that one. We had Cisco that was interested, but they unfortunately didn't meet the timeline of the bid. Did you want to add anything on the Benny Keith as far as introduction? I know we kind of talked about the Benny Keith.
Okay, so we did use, Cisco was our primary food service provider last year. And then we only used Benny Keith for produce because their delivery was on Tuesday and that allowed us to get fresher product instead of trying to hold it over from Thursday. That's the reason she brought in a second vendor, which works pretty good because if Cisco was out of something, then we had an opportunity to get it from Benny Keith. I did look at Benny Keith's bid. He gave me line item bid, and I went through and compared it to Cisco prices that I'm getting now, and a little more on some things, you know, it's comparable, but I was hoping Cisco would get there better. She just said she didn't have time to get it completed. She asked for an extension, but it was the day the bid was due, so she didn't come out quite early enough to ask for that extension. So I was hoping we could continue the way that we were doing it this year with Cisco and Benny Keith both, but this is my first time bidding out, so I'm not real sure. I reached out to the state people, but I think everybody took vacations. Same week, because I could not get anybody to call me back. So got a little bit of clarification today, but not enough to get me ready for tonight, so.
That would be my question is, do we have the ability to provide an extension?
So what, I think the best thing to do would, if you're kind of looking at that, is to reject the bids at this time and then do this again. And it'll give time for a little more time to get those bids back. The other option it has is it gives you the ability to explore some opportunities that are already part of a state contract, such as Greenbush has a vendor, US Foods, that's on their state contract. So it's already been bid out. And so that because it's already been bid out, the process to move forward with them as a vendor may be a little bit different. It gives us an opportunity and some time to look into that. So it's kind of a roundabout, long way of trying to answer your question. I think you bet.
Can we get that part done by beginning of school?
I think it would be tough because it does require board approval. So I think what we would do if with that is we would either call a special meeting or we would continue to purchase as necessary until the board meeting, which would occur within the first week of school to get the formality done. But if we go through Greenbush's state contract, that moves at a quicker pace.
And so you need a motion for that.
We need a motion to either accept the
I see a
Keith or
question.
the rejection.
What are you saying is Greenbush? We don't have to bid that out?
No, because it's already part of a state-approved contract. And so what that would do is give Nate an opportunity and to get an opportunity to reach out to Greenbush. So Charlie and Nate could call Tina Smith at Greenbush and get the details on US Food being with the state contract. What would be the steps to move forward there?
And so
Just that literally became an option talked about this morning. So that's why the timing of it. All the information isn't there.
But then if we don't go with Greenbush, then we bid it out again.
Then you're bidding it
The whole
out.
process starts again, and it's a new clock.
Yeah.
Because I had the same concern that Chris has. School's starting in a month.
Yeah.
And kids are going to want lunch.
Yeah, we're going to feed them. We'll order. Yeah, we'll order for them.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot stop ordering.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that.
So what's the default?
The default is that, yeah, we just continue with the flow that we have. You know, some of the bigger districts will evaluate that. They do big RFPs. They will sign 3 to 4 year contracts just to keep that ball rolling. Some of the vendors or some of the smaller districts don't even bid out the product piece to it. I don't believe that we were in a position to do that or have in the past. As to me, I feel like we should. Just make sure we're guaranteeing good price, good service, those types of things. So that's why we started late, just because of that, just because of the transition piece to that. So yes, I mean, worst case, we will find a way to make sure we have food on the table. Absolutely. So.
I mean, I just hate to be a stickler on this, but we just made a decision to a pretty big vote of confidence for in-house food service. And I would hate to handicap you all right out of the gate, right? I mean, that seems to be, that would be an unfortunate situation. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do is it gives you guys as much flexibility as you need to be able to get the food to.
Does the flexibility seem more daunting, or does it seem more I mean, is it, I'm just curious. I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
we either lock it in or.
Right. So, I mean, we could probably take Benny Keith's bid and then possibly still try to work with Cisco. I tried to get back from my training in time today to call Bambi and see are the prices going to be about the same as we had last year with them being the prime vendor? They're going to go up, but I didn't get back in time. She was already gone. So, and then I talked to one of the state ladies today at my training, and she said that I needed to check with Cisco to make sure that we didn't have an extended contract with them. Because as she says, sometimes they bid it out and then they extend that out 3 or 4 years. So we may still be under that bid contract with them. So if that's the case, then we'll still be able to use them both. So, but like I said, it's
But if you reject, then you have to start all over.
right.
But you have the Green Bush.
My thoughts on it is, I think you all know this already about me, is I like to have multiple options to compare against. Secondly, my vibe I'm getting is that Cisco seems to be maybe a preference anyway. And if there's a U.S. Foods option, as one of America's largest providers, to consider as well, I think that's all beneficial to consider, especially if it doesn't shut down the pipeline like he just clarified it won't. So I don't see any harm. I mean, Ben and Keith, they don't have to start over. They can just update the dates on theirs and resubmit it.
Right.
So it shouldn't hurt anyone. So that's just my thought.
And it's not a lack of confidence on my fault. I just wanted to ask a question
No,
because
you're fine.
we're rooting for you guys and also know this is first time around. So I want to make sure there's, I'm comfortable with all that personally, but what else? What are other thoughts? So if we're on the same page, the move would be we would need to reject this bid.
So moved.
Second.
Tony has moved, Kelly has seconded to reject the Benny Keith bid for our food product at this time. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thanks for walking us through all that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Capital outlay plan.
Yes, so next is capital outlay. We presented a draft plan last month, which is in your package this evening. So really no changes. The only one small change that we did add on page 2, a quarter way down, there's a high school ag greenhouse. We were looking at potentially purchasing a greenhouse for the new ag program. Part of this will be funded by a grant that they're currently working on. So we haven't budgeted it in, just to have it there. We don't expect to spend the whole pile there, just depending on the grant funds, but we wanted to add it to just to have it posted there, ready to go. But did any board members have any questions on the plan itself?
I have a couple. I know I think I asked this last month and was verifying that under the leases that also includes debt. It's not
Yes.
It's leases and debts.
That's correct. Yes, yes. And I'm sorry, I'll put that there, I'll list that there as far as the debt wording.
Thank you. And then second of all, I guess I come back to the parking lots and sidewalk project, knowing that that was part of the bond plan, and since we don't know where that bond plan is going, and just my concern if that's a priority over the spectator cover nets, if we are going to spend some money in that area, or even soccer field lights. I don't know, I guess I just wrestle with the fact that if we go do something and then it's torn out part of it to bring that street over and change things right away, seems like, I don't know, just because we approve this budget doesn't mean we have to spend that, is what I understand.
Correct.
Right? So
Correct.
I guess there's no harm in approving this.
What this does is gives Mike a framework to start doing some projects.
And then they'd have to come back and revisit this for board approval if they wanted to.
If we were making any adjustments to this, we would come back. This is not meant to be set in stone. So if we need to come back and make some adjustments to it, we can. Mike, do you want to talk about, because you mentioned the lights. Do you want to talk about what you done with the lights?
I went ahead and got some preliminary numbers on the lights for the soccer fields. And we're looking at this is, I don't know anything about lighting. I don't know if you guys do. But there's, 2 bids here. One's for a 50-foot, candle output, and one's for a 30-foot. The 30-foot, and I just got these today, so 30-foot comes in at $354,000, and the other one comes in at $425,000. That's through a local Coal Creek. They're doing the work with a national, I can't remember who the company is, but that's them doing the work. That's 4 poles set, and that would light up. That would also, I made sure that we have, if we decide to expand the track in the future, the poles will be set in that position. So we'll have that option. So, and I think the rec had already estimated that at 300,000. So.
Since we're processing what to do next with that next phase, that's why it's not put in here.
Okay, my questions are, thank you.
One thing I did want to make sure and share with everybody that I reached out to Mr. Dodge and also Vice President in between meetings, but wanted to share with you. I was looking for a loophole, to be completely honest. You know, you can pay staffing out of capital outlay, some form of staffing with maintenance, and so I did, and grounds, it says grounds. So I did ask if potentially an additional SRO could, as a steward of grounds, not that that person is mowing yards, but they are overseeing the care of grounds, could that be eligible in capital outlay? With the bond not passing and that enclosure between the junior high and high school, we have one SRO for this district and who has to be in charge of 4 buildings. It is a dream of mine, I'll be honest, to have an SRO dedicated for the junior high and high school and an SRO dedicated for the intermediate and primary center location. So those, now we have one who does a fantastic job. But with that enclosure still there, I wanted to see if that would be eligible through capital outlay because it isn't necessarily eligible in other places. Mr. Dodge did check on that with KSDE, excuse me. It is not. So I did want to follow up that I had that conversation with them with the delayed reaction thought from the last meeting. So that's something that maybe we continue to think about. I think it's important. I know it's not an education-specific position, but I just want to verbalize in the day and time that we live. I would like us to continue to think about how we might be able to make that happen. So.
And Kelly, remind me, we currently split that like half and half position with the city. Is that correct?
I don't know that it's 50-50.
I don't remember the
I don't think it's exactly
percentage.
50-50,
Yeah.
but it is a shared salary position. So in terms of the budget, other budget things, and it all fits together, something we might want to, or the board might want to keep its eye on. So thank you. So procedurally, if you guys have any other questions or pending other discussion points, we would need a motion to approve the capital outlay final plan, knowing that at any time, if needs determined that needs to be shifted, we can certainly do that.
I move that we accept the capital outlay plan as presented.
Chris moved and Tony seconded to approve the 23-24 capital outlay plan as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Bus bid.
Okay,
You have lots of stuff tonight.
yes. That's okay. I'm gonna ask Leanne to come up. Leanne is our
Hi, Leanne.
transportation director. So we're going to go over the bus bid for this year and seeking potential approval for that. If you guys recall, last year's we've purchased a bus each year. With everything COVID, we still haven't received our bus we purchased last year, just because of delays and delays and delays. So they're estimating hopefully October. That was pushed again. It was supposed to be around this time. So this evening, I don't know if you want to take the lead or if you would like me to do it. Okay. So just comparable, just again in your packets, we have a comparison, price comparison report that's put together by Midwest Bus Sales. They are a state contracted vendor, so no bid is required on this. So again, I kind of compared again to last year. We had them just put side by side Kansas Truck Equipment, Midwest Bus Sale, of course, and then Transit, or Midwest Transit, excuse me. The product is pretty much all the same within add-ons, price comparison, but Kansas Truck Equipment, you want to remind me, is a Bluebird, and then Midwest Transit is an international bus. Our buses are Thomas, thank you. So if you scroll down to the very last page, you'll see the final prices with all the add-ons. Kansas Truck Equipment came in at $115,265. Midwest Transit came in at $116,935, and Midwest Bus, came in at $129,671. We are seeking approval this evening for the Midwest Bus Sales. And the reason we are on the highest bid is because it matches our current fleet. Just like we discussed last year, this helps us maintain the parts, have them on the shelf instead of trying to do two different or three different types of buses. Plus our subscription to the video, reels, programs, cameras.
Bless you.
Given the length of time it's taken to get one put together, the parts there are premium. I think Al appreciates being able to stay within that same family.
And if the board recalls, earlier this year, we had quite some issue with the bus sitting in Topeka. So again, that's what we are seeking this evening, potential approval for Midwest Bus Sales. And pardon, the budget we had set, obviously, capital outlay is $130,000.
So, when you order a bus, do they just take a deposit and then you pay the remaining balance when they take possession, or do they hold our money for a year?
We hold it. We pay them zero.
Okay.
We encumber the dollars. Just if the board does approve, we encumber the next day. That way, those funds are locked. So our bus we purchased last year, we still have those funds.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
The price of that bus could fluctuate depending on the price of the equipment that it costs.
So you don't lock in the price?
This would be locked in. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I understand when I spoke with the sales rep, they locked that price in for us. Unless there's a contradictory to that. It's okay.
They've told me that it does fluctuate. So it's going to be pretty close to that amount, but it could fluctuate.
Because I know last year we were locked into it, but I'm not to argue. But yeah, I wasn't aware of it. Yeah. But we could be happy to check on that if you wish, just to confirm.
Yeah, let's check. I need to go back and look at my notes, but I don't recall it usually, and they might have changed their policy because of all the things that are going on.
And the length of time.
In the length of time.
Yeah.
In the past, the price that was quoted was the lock-in price for school districts, but a lot of stuff has changed post-pandemic and for all of those reasons. So, it would be good to understand, what does fluctuate mean?
Well, and given that the time from agreement to delivery is what it is, we're not dealing with a short time frame. So
yeah.
Happy to do that.
But if we make a motion to approve it at this price, it won't, you need more approval to exceed that price, right?
Contingent maybe on.
Yeah, if it's another $3,000 or something.
Yeah. I mean, we can always.
If it's 50, that's different, but yeah.
If you're on the edge or on the fence, we can always come back next month with more information for you.
I don't mind approving it, assuming that it is locked, like he
Yeah.
has been told by the salesperson.
Yeah.
And then you can just verify based on
Yeah.
conflicting information, and if it's different, we can come back and revisit it.
Yeah.
Then we don't have
By
to.
definition, if we make the motion that's recommended, it has to be altered if it's not that price, right?
Right.
So I would move we approve the bus purchase from Midwest Bus in the amount of $129,671.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, budget needs assessment review.
All right, so as part of statute regarding budget season, there is a need for school districts to, that's in statute now, school districts have always done assessments and reviews on budgetary needs. This now puts it into a statute to do it. What we've done is we've got some documents that I've got to you tonight that you can take a look at, where we met they first met with their building leadership teams to go through this and have that process of looking through the various questions that were built in by the state as part of this worksheet here. And I apologize for the font being what it is. It's a lot of information on a page there. But it goes through and has them look at student needs, so in terms of student population. So each building went through and did that with their staff or with their building leadership teams. They look at the different state board outcomes and provided their feedback there. We talked about curriculum needs, and then they reflect on the educational capacities, the different staffing needs, facility needs, family and community relationship needs, and then school data. There's also a section there that are bonus sections, particularly for the high school. Some things that are important for this process. There are several needs here that are human capital related. And human capital, if you think about a budget, you're roughly 80 to 85% of your operating budget is in the form of human capital. There are several needs that exist that whether it's to make up the positions that are impacted by expiring ESSER funds, or even just positions that we need to help students to continue to be successful. It's important to understand that we are not being funded statutorily at the 92% regarding special education. What that means for our district is we are, as a family, you're paying your taxes into the state, and it's there. We're sitting on a $3 to $4 billion surplus, but the funds aren't being allocated at 92% for special education. And so school districts have to make up that ground to get to the 92%, as well as to, in our case, to meet our assessments. What we're looking at is roughly 3 mils or so when you're talking about $300,000 to $400,000 that have to be leveraged somehow. And for many districts, and even in our case, that's LOB. And so there are a lot of positions that we could be funding and providing to help make up student learning gaps, student needs, if the funding coming to us was at the statutory amount. And that's something that's there, and districts all over the state are experiencing that as well. So what you have is you have the primary center, you've got access to the intermediate center, and you have access to high school. And in several cases, you'll see in the notes section, there are items that they could benefit from, that they could need, to fill a need, but we're lacking the funding. If special education funding were there, then we would have access to the funds to provide those positions. Currently, we've got 4 student success positions at each building. We've got social workers, and we've got portions of nurses' salaries that are there that are important. That they have the value and access to our building. So we're going to have to figure out solutions there. I'll give you a moment to look through those and ask any questions you might have.
Mr. Judge, it seems like there's quite a few references to like mental health supports, social emotional supports. It seems to connect back to the TAS numbers
So the work
I know
we're
we're kind
doing.
of early in that work currently, but it seems like that's addressing some needs that we have.
Right.
And that's not just one particular building, that's across the board.
Right.
All the buildings.
The second item you have in front of you is the state assessment review, the needs assessment that's there. There's four categories. There's one at the district level, and then there is one for each building. And they have the same three questions that are built in there. The first question is identifying barriers that must be overcome for each student to achieve grade level proficiency. In our key sentence there are always a number of challenges that should be considered when evaluating student success in the district. Some of the key barriers that impact our school district include, but they're not limited to, difficulty in scheduling and finding more time provides teacher and staff collaboration that would support improved student learning. It's though not necessarily identified as at risk using the free and reduced lunch calculation. We have a number of students that are at high risk of falling behind. Difficulty in retaining and attracting highly qualified teachers and replacing teachers as they retire. High levels or increased levels of student trauma. Lack of or limited access to community health services and mental health services. Special education shortfall has limited supports to our highest need students. High levels or increased absenteeism in our student population. An increasing level of social-emotional challenges and needs of students. It's difficult to encourage a student's highest performance on an assessment that does not impact their future, and that relates to the state assessment. The lack of limited or difficulties in engaging parents in educational processes, diminishing local control limits by our abilities to provide supports and services specified or specific to student and community population. We do not receive disaggregated and approved state assessment scores until October of a school year, and that limits the amount of time we have to make adjustments using that data. By the time you get third grade assessments back, they're in fourth grade.
Yeah.
We believe using one assessment is not an accurate measure of student success, especially because assessments are written in a way to avoid 100% success on every assessment participant. Yes?
So who's providing this?
Who's providing? I met with our building leadership team.
You guys are answering this question, that's not what they're providing.
Right. This is what we came up with as our building principals and myself, Ashley Troth, and Drew Eising. Identifying budget actions that should be taken to address and remove those barriers. Given an amount of appropriate level of funding for general education and special education, there are a number of budget actions we could take to remove some barriers. Some of those include increasing salaries to recruit and retain highly qualified, certified, and classified positions. Additional staff members hired to meet the individual learning and SEL needs of students. Increased funding and time for staff development, additional substitute teachers for teacher release time, maintaining low teacher-pupil ratio for greater individualized instruction, increasing funding for pre-K programs, and allocating budget to focus on prevention, identification, and intervention concerning trauma and mental health issues. Those all tie back into what we've been doing staffing-wise, what we've been doing with our, as you pointed out, the TASN training that we've been taking on. And then the third question, identifying the amount of time the board estimates that it would take each student to achieve grade level proficiency on state assessments if the budgeted items were implemented. We measure growth each year and document it in our KESA plans, our success on a variety of students' success factors. We emphasize growth and strive to lead the world in the success of every student. Although we do this and are proud of the work we do, many factors make it impossible to estimate a time where every student would achieve the definition of grade level proficiency. Such factors include the ever-changing student population, providing a varying degree of cognitive abilities and disabilities, which precludes us from being able to guarantee a date in which students could meet a singular level of proficiency. The current and future levels of school funding have a significant impact on student learning, and any increases or decreases have an effect on student successes. Any changes of those fundings in either direction impact the ability of students to meet proficiency criteria. A lack of constitutional funding of special education continues to impact our ability to fully meet the needs of all students. While assessment scores are one measure, our district does not believe that student assessment scores should be the sole measure of student proficiency. Similar to how other professionals such as doctors, lawyers, etc., cannot ensure 100% success due to a variety of factors and obstacles, we will be unable to achieve 100% proficiency. Many of the factors that affect student success, such as trauma, poverty, mental health, and student disabilities, are out of the board's local control. So giving time estimate on things that consistently change or are under the control of other agencies is not a realistic practice for the local school board. So that is the district level. Below that, we have each building level as well. This is all information that would be put up on our district website, and the feedback here, the input here has been leveraged and utilized as we have started that budget development process. And at the conclusion of this meeting, this will be placed for public access in board docs.
Thanks for all the work on that. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so Mark, just to be clear, these considerations have been developed. Stay at this level. They don't go to the state. All we have to do for the state is demonstrate that we have gone through this process, and that we review this as a board. Even though many of these considerations are state level decisions that impact us.
It's what we want to make sure as we're going through this, we want you as the board, and we want our families to understand there are decisions that get made in Topeka that have a direct impact on our ability to find success, whether it's through the allocation of a budget or whether it's through different legislation that requires certain procedures and steps to be made that either limit or slow down our ability to proceed. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So this is part of that piece to make sure that from the school system side of things, we're documenting that and we're placing it there. It'll be on our website.
But there's absolutely no guarantee that any legislator in Topeka, including our own state legislative representative or our state senator, will ever see these considerations.
It would be on our website, and they'd have to go seek it. It'll also be put into board docs.
Well, I think it's the bright side, it's a lot of work, but, the thing is, it's a good thing to do, and it's also a great way for patrons. I will tell you, 65% of my phone calls, someone's upset about something, and I'm usually pointing to a statute that we had nothing to do with, So anytime you can assimilate, put all this information together, so the more people that understand that, the better, because then it helps direct the right kinds of conversations at the right level. It's a lot of work, but I think it's a great exercise, and I think it does the job of providing transparency of what the needs are that then the budget decisions are based upon. So thank you all for putting all that together. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just say, I think it's important to be reflective. I think this is like an annual thing, right? Where
Yes.
like every summer we kind of review this process, and
we started in the fourth quarter is what we did this year, so that the building leadership teams go through this process with the building principals.
Yeah.
Well, you were here for the fourth quarter this year.
I was. Yes.
And as you're reading through this list, I'm comparing this to what we're doing in our strategic plan as well. I'm thinking, we can't control for, like as a school district, you can't control for the poverty level of our community at large, right? But we can do things to help to address some of those concerns that stem from poverty, right? And so as you read through this list of things that we can't control, do you still feel like our strategic plan is basically oriented towards addressing what is controllable within this, and obviously we're making progress within it already.
Yeah, I think it is. At this point, again, it's still early in my time here to that end of things, but I feel like we're making we're heading in the right direction with that. I think the work that our buildings are doing, both individually with their students and then collectively as we develop our systemic approach, we're heading there. And then the support that we've received from the board on that end of things has been taking us down that path.
And another one of those bring it all together things, and this is available for the public too, but the fact that each agenda item is now tied to which part of the strategic plan, that's really helpful, because again, why are we just making stuff up as we go, or is this actually, no, this is part of this and that's part of that. And I think that's helpful too,
The
so
milk bid connect.
the more you know. Yes, okay. Anything else before we move on?
Could I get a motion to accept?
Oh, sorry. No,
Would that be possible?
sorry.
You're fine.
Yes, we do need a motion for that. Let's not blow it now. All right, I move we accept the budget needs assessment review as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. All right. Exceeding revenue neutral rate for 23-24. Mr. Ohlert.
Yes, again, so just like last year, our expectations to Douglas County as far as providing them information is due this week. Just like last year, we'll be submitting information that as far as the bills that we are looking at. And again, this year, we're looking at exceeding the revenue neutral rate primarily. Again, this just sets caps for that. It doesn't set a final, but if, for example, if we were to levy 10 mills and we wanted to decide, or the board wants to decide to do 12 later, it's kind of comparable to that would be. So really, this evening's not really seeking approval, but just our communication to the board that we're going to submit those numbers to Douglas County Thursday, the 20th of this week. So I didn't know if you had any questions on the process, or I think I lined the timeline as well for everything.
When will we receive those to review?
Receive
Just a
what?
copy of what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I can get you copies, that's not a problem. I mean, last year, we based upon our budget that we built, we just submitted those caps.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's due to the state July 20th.
Where I personally was last time around. Sure. So I just like to see it sooner.
Sure. Yeah.
It's due to, Nate has to notify the county, Douglas County, by July 20th of those figures to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
And he covered all that in his email to us, his last email, timeline and what's involved, so.
Right. So part of that submission to the county this week, we do need to set a time for both R&R hearing and budget hearing. Just again, I'd like to lay it out into the time plan itself. We shot a date of September 14th as a special meeting, 6 p.m. for the R&R hearing and 6:30 for the budget hearing. Unless your board or if there's any conflicts with the date or times for that, we sure can adjust if needed. We just do that as a starting point for that.
Could you repeat the dates again, Matt?
Sure. It was September 14th. Sorry, let me get my point here. So, September 14th this year, of course, we're looking at start time at 6 p.m. for the R&R hearing, which will be conducted first. And then we have a 6:30 p.m. start time for the budget hearing.
That's the week that you're going to be Wichita for that conference. That UTSS conference.
But I feel like,
Which means that Susan will be down too.
well, I feel like date for that.
That's the 14th.
Yeah, that's the final day of that conference, so I can be back I'll be back
By the evening.
by the evening.
Oh, okay. I'm guessing Susan would too in that case. I'm not sure how long Dan is staying.
I don't know how late they have to stay.
It's a popular.
And again, if we need to modify dates.
If someone's attending a conference and they need to zoom in, I mean, that's not, I don't think that's the end
Yeah,
of the
just
world.
thinking if we have.
Yeah, we
have
need-
the admin team out.
That's.
No, I'll be back. It's the 14th, it's the final day of that conference.
That's a Thursday, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just checking here, do the dates need to be included in the motion? Probably, the dates of the hearing is what we're,
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily.
I don't
have to
see
do-
that here,
I
but
don't think we necessarily have to do a motion. It's more communicating to the board as far as just our intention of filing those numbers.
Yeah, I would like for a matter of record if we could get a motion to notify the county.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
thought so.
For the dates, but that doesn't mean we have to have the dates for the meetings.
Okay.
Barry, did you say, Kelly, that what is being submitted has already been sent to us?
Yeah, Nate?
I'm looking at his last.
No, he has not sent you the R&R figure.
Not the document itself, just the timeline.
timeline,
I see the
When we, okay, yeah.
Yes, what I'm wanting is the document.
Of the official, the publication notice?
Yeah, what we're actually.
He doesn't, that piece for publication doesn't occur until we get closer to the hearing dates.
825, I think, is what it goes.
Yeah. What he has to send to the county isn't part of that
It's
publication.
not
That's
that
just-
spreadsheet that was up on the, okay, so that's coming later. You don't have that completed yet.
No, that doesn't go, but what goes in the paper doesn't go out until in August.
Yeah,
Until August.
25th.
It'd be, no, later than 10 days before the actual hearing.
And they can't finalize that until the needs assessment is done first. That has to be completed. If I'm understanding the statute, the needs assessment part has to be completed, and then you build that based on the approval of that. So this is simply the publication that provides the notice and the intention to have the hearing to set the caps. It's not a decision.
What the notice to Douglas County does is gives Douglas County the ability to let taxpayers know what the R&R figures are.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
not the
those
public.
figures are going to be designed between tonight and whatever you have to submit.
We've got those figures, if that's what you're
That's
asking
what
for.
I'm asking.
We've talked about that, and we've got that information to send to the county.
What other figures are there? Is there something else that?
I thought you were asking for the budget, Kelly.
No.
I thought you were going.
No. I'm talking about the R&R, the same slide that was up there last year.
Okay, again, that slide that was up there last year is the publication in the newspaper that goes out. That part hasn't been processed. The numbers for it are there, but that actual document isn't.
Well, I don't care if it's in that format, but just the numbers, I guess, whenever they're available.
Any other questions? And I'm sorry, I didn't know what you were,
That's right.
I didn't know what you meant either. Yep, so step one, notify the county, have the hearings, go through the process of completing a budget for our review, figure out what we want to do, vote on it. Lots of extra steps than what there used to be. That's the point. But it's good. I move to notify Douglas County of the district's intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Subsequently, those hearing dates will be published at that time so we can listen to the public.
Second.
Okay. Tied. Megan will decide. Thank you. All those in favor of publishing to Douglas County, or excuse me, notifying to Douglas County, therefore publishing the subsequent information, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks for hanging in, guys. Administrative reports. High school band trip.
Mr. O'Neill has a great opportunity for his band students that he'd like to share with you as it relates to the city of Chicago.
I'm actually not going to say a whole lot because I've already emailed ahead of time. I think travel goes two ways. I think it's great to get out and see the world, and it's an exciting thing. So it works in favor of the band also. Kids get excited about it. They keep doing band. The company with whom I work, they're terrific. I've worked with them before. It's nice to have a professional. They'll meet us there. So 20 minutes before we go do this event, they show up with the tickets so that I don't lose them, or the kids don't lose them. One time we were having a group dinner and it was really cloudy outside and we were scheduled to go up to the John Hancock Tower. And we wouldn't see anything. So they took care of it and we got a reimbursement for it. So I just don't have much that's not on here. Do you have any questions?
Just what grade levels are covered?
High school.
Just I know
High
something,
school.
but I couldn't find it.
Is there any funding requirements from the district?
I-
Is this all self-funded?
I guess that's up to you guys. No, I don't mean to be flippant. I'm new here. In my old district, they chipped in per individual student. I've not been
There
here
was no
long
ask
enough to
in
do
your
that.
proposal for that.
Excuse me?
In your communication, there wasn't any ask.
That is correct. This was an entry-level proposal so that I could get started. I didn't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, so I take it you haven't started the fundraising.
Fundraising for us is something perpetual. We did some this year. We do both group and individual. We sell Cherrydale candy bars, and if Billy sells 100 of them, Billy gets that profit. The band gets a donation for playing at the Vinland Fair. That just goes into the kitty for everybody. So, and we intend to use that to offset. I wasn't trying to be. No, don't give me money, please.
For activities, when our sports teams go, there's usually a form of meal stipend that happens or like, right? Well, understood, but it's, anything greater than zero is still something, so there might be something to look at. Again, not that there's money sitting in all these accounts, and we want to support all the fundraisers. There's other booster things I know what we've talked about too. But in general, we've approved, and then there's been stipend stuff that has happened, at least for coaches or sponsors, just to help a little bit with that, because trip doesn't happen if the teacher or the coach isn't there to guide the activity. So probably more of those details to get into, but certainly nothing that needs to be worked out tonight in terms of blessing the trip.
My goal for tonight was to hopefully check a box so that we could then move forward.
Yep.
March in Chicago, halfway through winter.
Okay.
I move we approve the band trip as presented.
Second.
Kelly moved and Tony seconded. All those in favor of approving the band trip to Chicago, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I've got
Mr.
a good
O'Neill.
story for you.
It's gonna be 20 degrees.
LMH Athletic Training Service Contract.
All right, typically this would be part of a consent agenda. It's an annual agreement or a regular agreement to allow Gary to continue the services with us. But what I wanted to do is bring it up here as part of admin reports, because there's an adjustment that LMH is making to put them on par with what other medical facilities are doing in terms of providing athletic training for area school districts, and that's providing a partnership fee to help take care of some of the, sounds like material costs there that go with it. Gary, if you can elaborate a little bit more. It's not a huge amount or a big budget-breaking amount this year because it's the first year of the fee. They're only charging us a portion of what that typical fee would be. This year, that portion would be $1,310 which is a portion of what the actual fee, which they amount at $4,368. Next year would be the full amount. So I don't know if there's any other questions. Gary knows a little bit more about it than I do.
Basically, like Mark said, it's to get more in line with what other hospitals do. They provide athletic training coverage. They are looking at roughly over the course of, to get in a full year, roughly $10,000 or 10% of their expenses. I wish they paid me that much, but by the time they factor in malpractice insurance, we do, if we have a big event, we will get an additional athletic trainer or 2 or 3, depending on what it is. So they do have some additional expenses above and beyond what they pay me, but they did want to ramp it up They didn't want to just say, hey, this year it's gone from nothing for the last 25, 30 years to $5,000 this year, so they're only asking for a third of that, their quote-unquote full amount. It's not going to change anything coverage-wise. It's still everyday training room hours events. I mean, you guys have all seen these events. But we may have 6 different home events in a day, and I'm floating amongst them, but none of that's going to change. It's still kind of limited in the summer, just so I can have a little bit of a life. But they're trying to get on par with what KU Med, Olathe Health, charge school districts. It is kind of, I won't say how do I describe this? I will say there is a hospital in the Kansas City area that has just recently dropped all of their athletic training and sports medicine coverage. So there are schools out there that are in scramble mode. And I know LMH is kind of, I'm kind of a business tax write-off for them, but they don't want to put all bill forever. So it's kind of the gist of it.
So, like I said, typically this would be part of a consent agenda because it's a regular renewal, and this puts us, this is a 5-year agreement, 3-year, excuse me, 3-year agreement, that's right, 3-year agreement. So.
Well, we're lucky to have it. I move we approve the LMH Athletic Training Service contract as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
I guess I'll keep taking care of your kids tomorrow.
Thanks,
Hopefully they all need you.
Thanks,
All
Chief.
right.
Transportation handbook.
Yes, so as one of Leanne's welcome to the position tasks is to present the transportation handbook. Typically, this would be presented and approved in the June board meeting, but we wanted to give her an opportunity to look at the handbook. She's made some suggested changes that are noted in red there. But she's noting there, I think, is great, identifying to parents that there are some opportunities to provide evacuation drills within the bus. And I think that's an important thing for parents. It's a thing you don't want to think about, but it's good knowing that there's that training there. Any other highlights there that you wanted to speak to?
Not really. There's not very many changes, as you can tell this year, just a few, like you said, evacuation drills. I just did want to tell you guys how many miles we went in 2022, 2023 for regular routes, 75,839 miles. For activities was 24,298 miles, which altogether puts us at over 100,000 miles for the school year, all without incident. So we are thankful. Have any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion approved?
Yeah.
I move we approve the 2023-24 transportation handbook. Second.
Chris has moved and Phil has seconded to approve the transportation handbook as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Parents as teachers job description update.
Okay. This job description previously was listed as parents as teachers, parent educator. The shift has gone to a coach. And so there have been some updates in terms of some of the essential functions that were listed there. One of the qualification changes is that it no longer requires a licensed teacher or licensed teaching certificate in this model. It's a continuation of the efforts. What this does is move it from a licensed position to a classified position.
And I'm sorry to ask a dumb question, but so is it not STAR parents as teachers?
It still is. It's
still
the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know there was some change in the
I have not been notified of a change to that title.
Okay, got it.
I'll move we approve the job description for the PAT parent coach.
Second.
Andy moved and Chris seconded to approve the job description change to PAT coach. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye, motion carries 6-0. Operations update.
All right, so I asked Mike to come up and give a little bit of a rundown for some of the projects that he's been overseeing over the summer with the summer work crew, and give props to his crew that have been doing an amazing job getting our facilities ready for the upcoming school year. And he's excited to present.
I was hearing walk-up music in my mind.
Me too.
I just feel like we could incorporate that into some of our meetings sometimes.
I do want to give a shout out to my guys that, my custodians and my maintenance crew that have been doing the summer cleanup in the buildings. They have worked their tails off. I think they got into a little bit more than they could, or than they thought they would over at the PC. But that building really came out really nice. The junior high in this building came out great. Let's see, I've got 6, 7, 8, 9 custodians and then 2 student custodians. They're doing a great job. Mason Haddle and Tucker Johnson. I just can't say enough how they're doing. They're through these 3 schools. Now they're over at the high school, starting on the upstairs of that. We're a couple days ahead of schedule, so we're doing good. Nurse's office expansion went real well. The only thing we need to do there is put on some lock sets, and then that project's complete. Our summer painting went really well. My 2 painters that I have left, one of them is Jill over here. She's doing some touch-up work over here. And Angie over at the PC, she's going to do a couple of the, I don't know, the timeout rooms, whatever you call it. Do those over there. And when I get the pillar, we got 1 pillar down there in the locker bay where they chipped out. Fixing that. Once I get that done, they'll have that done. Or they'll have that side painted, and we'll have that locker bay area painted. Kind of a preview of what we're going to do hopefully next year with we'll start on the rest of the high school. Get rid of that green. We'll also be where we took the lockers out. We're going to get some new flooring. I think you guys saw pictures of that. So far, it's going to be going in, I think, the first week of August. So it'll be in, ready for school to start. Junior high band storage lockers, they came in. I got those removed, and my painters went in and painted that room and got that completed. My maintenance crew is taking the lockers out now of the room, and then I'll be installing those later this week or next week. I already told you about the locker bay. I'll start with this HVAC project. We had a final not a final walkthrough, but we had a walkthrough this morning. Created a punch list with the contractor, what they needed to complete. Most everything is complete in this building except for a few kinks with the Pelican thermostats. Their control guys are working on that, and we should have all those kinks ironed out before the start of school. See, where am I at? Yeah, and then the same company is doing our junior high HVAC project, and that's still slated for the mid to late August install. So, and then we have the junior high cooler freezer and a district freezer. I didn't send out any bids, but I had a budgetary estimate that I've had contacted two companies for. I got one estimate back from A&H to replace both the inside units and the outside units in the junior high, and to replace the inside and outside unit in the district freezer that is not operable right now. Will be a total of $45,341 according to them. I'm going to go ahead and send this out for bid, and when I get the bids back, I'll bring it in to you guys, and then you guys can decide if we want to do that project or not. But that would give us two updated cooler and freezer in the junior high, and then an extra freezer in the bus farm parking lot there for extra storage. So to help out the food service gals. So, okay, any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
They've been working hard.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I do have one more thing. Family Church came down Saturday, and they did a service day for us, or not for us, but I think they did it part of their church. And they ended up washing all the windows around the junior high and the pack.
Oh.
They did a really great job.
That's awesome.
So, thank you.
Mike and his crew have worked really hard. I'm excited about the spaces over at the high school. The library looks amazing with the fresh coat of paint and new carpet. And then the locker bay, the expansion for that space, the opportunity for that space of what's to come is going to be great. Rather than it being a row of unused lockers, it'll now become a more utilized space for students. So we're excited about that.
Awesome. How's everyone doing pace-wise? You want to keep going? You want to take a restroom break?
I'd like to take one.
Yeah? Okay. Let's have a recess then. And then when we come back, we'll transition to old business. Thank you. I wasn't going to call it if it Go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Moving on to old business, facility rental follow-up.
Yeah, so if Zach and Gary wouldn't mind coming up here, just wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up to last month's meeting. Zach's church looking to rent our PAC and being very flexible, understanding that there are certain times a year where the stage itself is off limits, or there may be an opportunity where the PAC needs to be, that would be out of circulation there as part of it. Zach, would you mind talking to the board? One of the concerns that we talked about was the wear and tear. Can you share with the board what you shared with me in terms of the measures for the wear and tear protection?
Well, one thing specifically, I know it's probably a little bit less of a concern in the cafeteria, but right now in Wellsville, we have about 80 to 90 kids on a Sunday morning. And so if we kind of project it where we're going to run in a larger community, it's going to be really hard to have really 3 different kid age environments within the cafeteria. So our hope was that we could also use the common space. Now, in both of those spaces, if we were allowed to use the common space, in both of those spaces, we have a foam flooring that's kind of an interlocking liquid resistant flooring that would be placed throughout all of those floors, with the exception of kind of a walkway around the edge, especially with like infants and toddlers, since they're down on the mat, to keep kind of adult feet off of the mat. So there's kind of a walkway around. But that would be in both of those locations would be a foam flooring. So I know that was one concern, especially if we do the commons, how can we best protect the carpet? So really there would not be traffic besides just kind of a border for adults to be able to walk around. So that was one thing.
All right.
Anything else?
I just in the interim between our previous meeting and now, I've had a chance to talk with the folks in other communities as well. And I think we've been living in a bit of a bubble in Baldwin. It sounds like this is common practice for organizations like churches to rent out schools. In fact, it sounds like in Olathe, for instance, there's rarely a school that's not being rented out on Sundays for these purposes as well. So it seems like it's a benefit for our community and our district's bottom line as well to be renting out this facility for this purpose in mind.
And our Refuge Church rents out the junior high there, and has since 2008 when they planted. They took a hiatus when the restrictions in terms of gathering spaces, they moved to a different location because our school facility couldn't be used for that. But in Eudora they did as well.
And our district has done that. It's just that it was held here at the IC and not in the other space. So we've done this here, just not in that particular area of the district. So
as an agreement, what would I say? A template, is there an agreement drafted, a rough draft of the rental agreement?
We have not gotten into specifics other than we've got the district has a standard facilities rental agreement. We have not added or deleted anything off of that at this point. We've had lots of email conversations back and forth about, we can definitely miss a weekend if it's set up for the play or musical or whatever. I mean, they'll work around our stuff as needed.
Does the facilities agreement, when someone rents out the PAC, is that include renting out the commons or the cafeteria, or that's an additional space? I'm just.
the facility agreement has other parts of the building.
You can mark
okay, what parts you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those all have different fees on those agreements.
I don't know if the junior high has a fee for the cafeteria and commons, honestly. Off the top of my head, I haven't looked at it for a month or so, to be honest with you, but.
And what in that agreement is the out? I mean, is there an out for either entity? In other words, if they decide after a couple months it's not what they hoped it to be, then they could terminate the agreement and vice versa.
Honestly, Kelly, that's the biggest reason we came to the board is the rental agreement typically is hey, the dance troupe wants to use it this weekend.
It's a one-off
for a dance recital.
Mm-hmm.
So
this isn't really how the form was originated, if that makes sense.
I agree. So I think that's my point. Like Chris, I've evolved a little bit since our last, since we met last. But I think this is much different than what our current rental agreement was
100%
designed
agree.
for. I would recommend that we put together an agreement that both parties are, that's designed for this particular situation, and then bring it back and let us approve that once that's put into place. It would be my recommendation, and then it has, all the details thought through as far as what those parameters are.
Like I said, we don't have
Instead of
anything
trying
written,
to make
and we
what we
don't-
have fit into what's going on, since
Correct.
it's so unique.
But we don't have anything written down like, oh, what are we gonna do in the middle of January when it snows? So, I mean, that's just not on the form, but I agree.
And if that was sent out, we could do a Zoom special if there's a sense of urgency to get it there or something. Would be my.
When did you, I feel like my recollection was September was your anticipated start time, right?
So we are at the point now where we're working with a company called Portable Church Industries out of kind of the Detroit area. And we're working through them to purchase kind of, how do you turn a school into a church? And so we want to do that excellent. We want to do that well. So we're working with this company. We're already, just with this month, we're already being pushed from, so we were looking at about September 10th. That's the weekend after Labor Day. We're probably looking at about a month later to October. So there is a little bit of a sense of urgency in that we're still hoping to accomplish this fall, if we can. So I'll just be honest about that.
So if we
It's not
approve this in August, would that be soon enough for you? The sooner the better.
Yeah, the sooner the better. Yeah.
And
Well, we can formulate a motion. I support it. My only, as a steward of our facilities, just thinking through all of how do we make sure everything's cared for? I mean, I think all of those questions have been answered from my point of view.
Yeah.
There's 6 of us, but I think based on other motions that we have crafted, I think we could, I believe we could craft a motion that, if it reflects the majority's view, that we grant permission for the usage. And I think we could put in some specifications about completing the contract. I mean, nothing's done till it's done, but in terms of signaling that we support it and we're finding a way forward, I think we could do that, so that I think that would give you what you need.
Yeah. And then the conversations I've had with Gary, I agree. I think that's wise for both sides to put something in place. We don't want anyone to feel trapped. And
Right.
that's what we said. Like, there should be something written in to where if the school says, hey, this isn't what we thought, this isn't a good fit,
Right.
that protection should be in place.
And personally, I don't want your church to have to pay if there's a snow day and you guys have paid all the way through January, but you didn't get to use it because we were snowed in for 2 weeks. I don't want that for you either. So, there's things that need to be worked out. That's where I'm at. Where's everybody else at? And if everybody's more comfortable with having the contract come back and we Zoom it, I'm cool with that too. But I don't think we should wait until our regular business meeting in August. It would need to be, and I know people are taking off. So as long as we can get 4 people, I'd be good with that too. But what do you guys think?
well, that's my preference.
Okay.
I do have a couple other questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a long-term plan for your church, or is this like the next chapter before maybe someday you have your own facilities?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to have a permanent facility in the community. I mean, reality is it is by far the most cost-effective way to launch a church. And so that's the way that we want to start it initially, or approach it initially. But by all means, we hope that, a facility, a location comes available, or we can get property or something at some point. We definitely want to have a permanent space, that is our home church.
And I know last meeting there was some discussion about, I believe there was a request for a discounted rate. And has that been determined if we're, I guess, is that part of the
I spoke about that. I still have 2 concerns. I'm fine with it. I want us to be able to pull out if wear and tear is not to our satisfaction, and I'm not really interested in negotiating a discount personally, so that's where I stand.
So forgive me if I missed this, but what's the typical size of a congregation on Sunday for the church currently?
What we are
What are
currently,
we talking about? How many numbers?
about, including kids, about 300, I would say is a good average at this point.
Some of those folks might stay in Wellsville.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, we have about 75 people that are within the Baldwin School District that are coming to Wellsville now. That would probably be about the number. And we already have a leadership team of all Baldwin people that are in place, and kind of a launch team put together of people from Baldwin that are going to help us get this off the ground. But yeah, certainly a lot of those people would remain in Wellsville. So.
What else? So is everyone more comfortable with putting together the contract based on the things that have been talked about here? Are we all on the same page with no upfront discount? Because then if you just pay the fee, then you pay as you go, then there's no, oh, wait, we paid up for, I think it could keep it cleaner, particularly when there's nothing in our rental policy that really allows for that. So I feel like we would have to add that policy to Andy's point. I think everyone's comfortable with proceeding, but would be more comfortable with approving a final contract. So if you guys can work that out and then we zoom it quickly so it's not an entire other month.
Sure.
But I think that everyone.
And do we want to talk about any of those details that individual board members might like to see?
Yes, we should do that now so that they have
Because I like what you were
it.
just saying, I think monthly, kind of like your mini business would be like, you rent any facility, you're probably going to pay right by the month.
Right.
Which is a good thing.
Right. I would be comfortable with that. I mean, and good deal's got to be a good deal for everybody, right? So, that doesn't mean I couldn't, well, I won't be here. But, those kinds of things. But there really just isn't anything in our policy of you get the 10% discount or whatever. So I'm a little uncomfortable personally going there. What other kinds of
I mean, I think
stipulations?
either party should be able to, basically at will.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think you should do that on a Saturday night. Get in the middle of setting up.
Right.
Morning, yeah, so I mean, whether it's a month out or at least some kind of stipulation to say, okay.
Like a 30-day.
Yeah.
30-day notice.
He just texted me, he thinks there's an MOU with the church that used this, that we can, if we can dig that out.
There you go.
Kind of at least have a template to start off of.
Mm-hmm.
And insurance-wise, that might be something just to check on.
So we do require anybody that rents our facilities to have an insurance policy with, off the top of my head, I think it's $1 million loss damage, with the district listed as an additional payee. So we'll put that in there, but that's on the.
That's already
contract.
built in.
That's
Yeah.
already built in.
Well, I guess it's not too complex.
Yeah.
Those 3 points,
Yeah.
those 3 points, we're going to feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe a definition of what space is going to be used. I'm not, if we're going to do it, probably from a wear and tear standpoint, the more you cram them together, the more likely there's going to be damages. So I would rather spread it out. I'd rather offer the commons area to be honest.
Anything else? You've been taking notes.
Megan's taking good notes for me.
Mr. Dodge has been taking
And
notes.
I'm
maybe
sure
ask
Megan's are
Mike.
more legible than mine, to be honest.
I guess one other suggestion would be to ask Mike what's going to be his team's responsibility for their usage.
Can you talk about your setup and cleanup process?
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole team that's dedicated to the setup and the tear down process. And, part of the conversation that we've had is our goal and expectation is that we leave it as good or better than we found it. And that includes walking through, making sure nothing got dropped or left or spilled or anything like that. So that will be a part of our weekly process, is to make sure that we go through any space where we touched and try to make sure that it looked like it did when we found it. So I think we can obviously include that into the contract.
Great. Anything else? Okay.
All right, thanks.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thank you. KSB policy updates.
If you thought my update on MTSS was riveting, this will really get you excited. All right, this is a follow-up to the KSB policy updates. As shared with you last month, I wanted to give you an opportunity to look these over and think them through. We've got a list there of recommendations that we would suggest in terms of what to approve. Many of them are reflecting legislation. Some of them are updating vocabulary. There's some that don't apply. One that I want to really to highlight right now in terms of what to not approve, not to include in the approval, is the JBCC enrollment of non-resident students, and that is because there is a specific process that's required. There's a process with a draft policy would be provided, that there would be opportunity for public comment, patron input on that policy, and it has to be published within a certain time frame for the board to go through and approve it. Ideally, what I'd like to do is shoot for the approval to take place in November, so that as we're going through things, if things through processes, as we approve this, because this is new, if there's an amendment that we want to make a change to, then we have the opportunity in December to make that change before it goes into, before the requirement of January 24 of that policy being in place. So that is one that I want to point out. There's a specific process that will be required as we go through that. That's going to require that we set grade level caps, if you will, in terms of number of students involved through 8th grade, and then at the high school, it's actual building enrollment that's factored in there. So we want to make sure that we spend the right time to study that, to provide you with the most adequate and best policy possible as we're entering into this. What this would allow then, once that policy goes into place, it would allow us in June next year to have that opportunity. So if we have get close to the number of people that want to non-resident transfer to our district, if that exceeds the amount of available slots for a particular grade level, that there would be a lottery that would take place. That's one thing that's necessary. If for some reason your enrollment were to drop, the advice there is that the families that didn't win in the lottery have the ability to be first notified. Based on the way this works, if one sibling gets in, they all get in, even if that means you exceed the established grade level or building capacity. There's a lot that goes into it, and I want to make sure that we get that to you in that right time frame. So.
Understood.
The opioid antagonist there, that's the Narcan policy. The recommendation is we're checked with Lisa Patrick. We had checked with her a while back, but she was experiencing the summer vacation. And so we talked to her today and she looked at it. But rather than ask her to make the recommendation after having looked at it for a half an hour, we wanted to say, you know what, let's meet on this in August, and we'll get you that specific piece there, if that particular incident form is necessary from her professional judgment there. She's got one that she utilizes, just wasn't placed into the policy that we approved earlier this year. One other, the last one, I said the last one was the last one, but this is actually the last one. There is a new process that's required should a district decide to sell a building or property. There is a state legislature gets the right to, if you find a buyer and they make an offer and you've got your agreement, it has to go to the state legislature, and the legislature has the ability to determine if they want to pursue that. I guess they're in the real estate game now. In the stipulation to that is they get 45 days to discuss the matter, but that only occurs while they're in session. So if the district were to make an agreement with somebody in May, the legislature won't look at that until January when they come back. and then they have 45 days to give it a look. Long story short, it could really delay the selling of a facility, or so that you could, one, do it within the right time frame, so the district would be looking at a flexible buyer, or find someone that's okay with the time frame. So if the state decides not to purchase it, then the district has the ability to proceed. So that's what that policy speaks to.
But the state would know I'm just curious about this. They would know the price that the other buyer was already going to pay for it, so it's not a closed bid process anymore?
Nope.
And
And
I
it's
didn't
any
understand-
district property.
So it could be a school or like a strip?
It could be a school, it could be a shed, it could be,
And I didn't understand that could have, that you had to delay even if they were out of, so even if they're out of session.
they're out of session, you gotta wait until they come back in January. So, timing is everything. So, all right. Again, like I said, that was the last one that I talked to.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the document titled KASB Policy Update Recommendations, June 19, 2023, that is accurate to what you just spoke to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so I move that we approve the KASB Policy Update Recommendations from June 19, 2023.
Second.
Chris has moved and Andy has seconded to approve the KASB policy updates as described. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. IFCB update.
This one here this is in reference to the international field trip. I've discussed at the last board meeting that it wanted to make sure that the policy reflected practice. And so in this particular case, that policy update shows that any international trip would seek board approval.
Thank you for doing that.
You are welcome.
I move we approve IFCB policy to reflect board approval for all international trips as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. No new business. And board member input. Interlocal report.
I'll be brief, I think anyway. Staff positions, start there. We, at the interlocal, we still have 2 open positions as of the middle of last week, one of which is in this building here for 3rd grade, resource room teacher. The other one's a behavior specialist that serves all 3 districts. There are 0 applicants for these jobs. It's not like we're being picky about it at this point. We are actively encouraging and trying to head out, honestly, for any qualified individuals to fill those roles. But we'll figure something out before school starts, obviously, but I just wanted you guys to be aware that there may be some change of staff even fairly late into the school year, or as we approach the school year. The last one, and Mark, you may know more about this one than I do, but I saw that the State Board of Education had unanimously voted for an increase in sped funding. Not that they have the power to do so, but they advised the legislature to do that over the
5 years. Basically endorsing the governor's plan.
So we just wanted to give you guys an update that there are multiple elected bodies advocating for what we saw in our building assessments as well, that we were advocating for an increase in special education funding because there is that big gap right there. So, but any more information on that?
No, you pretty much covered it.
But I believe it was unanimous though, which was surprising from our state board these days.
Yes, 10-0.
Yeah. So, but that's all I have from our last night. All right.
Thank you. Miscellaneous. Any other board member have input they would like to offer? Briefly, I try to be as brief as Chris. That was really good. I'm still working on from our team planning group work session. I'm still working on the handbook. So for BOE stuff, so if there's anything, just want to continue, anything you want to see added, obviously we'll get a draft to you. I didn't feel like that should be Mark or Megan's duty because it's reflective of board work, but
certainly we'll get a draft to you once all of those pieces. But if there's certain things that you think, oh, I want to make sure that's in there, please don't be shy about sending me an email and letting me know. The other thing, I think I already noted this earlier, just tying in the work of our strategic plan to every agenda item. Thank you for taking the time to do that in agenda building, because it's important that we link everything we do to the decisions that have come before. So it's good for us as a reminder, and it's also, I think, great for the public to see how those things connect. And the last thing I'd really want to say is, this is kind of like our Happy New Year meeting. This is a new year. It's the end of an old fiscal year, the start of a new. And I wanted to give a shout out to our admin team. It's not just a new year, but if you think about news, and I don't want to forget anybody, so shout me out if I do. We have a new superintendent, new curriculum instruction director, essentially new financial director, new director of operations, new primary center principal. What else? There's more.
Transportation, food service.
New transportation, new food service, and also in our district office, other than Megan, every other person in there, all three of them, has also been brand new. So that's a lot of change in really a very short period of time in a district where there's a lot of longevity, which is wonderful. And so I just want to compliment each of you, because not only are you learning how to do a new gig, but you're doing it together. I think that can be really exciting. I think it's already paying off and showing in dividends for sake of our students. We've got more work to do, but also the board recognizes that that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So thank you all for the work that you've done to make all that happen. And I wanted to congratulate you specifically on the new year, because this last year had some interesting challenges too, as we know, but I think we're better and stronger for it. So well done and thank you. All right, moving on to superintendent's report.
All right, so what I wanted to share with you is last month we submitted our year one KISA report to the state. And what this is a new round of our accreditation cycle. And so what we did there is reflect on the work of the previous cycle, as well as the direction we feel we needed to head moving forward with this next round, so it can lead us to the setting of goals. So what I wanted to share with you in January, the building principals, myself, Drew Ising, Ashley, and met to go through and review that previous cycle. We discussed what went well and what didn't go well, and what direction we wanted to go moving forward. And with the firm consensus, the group agreed that our next round of accreditation needed to focus on behavior and social emotional growth while improving post-secondary success. We followed up on April 17th in 2023 with an update to our district site council noting our focus areas. Additionally, Ashley and I attended a KISA workshop with our OVT chair, Dr. Lee Hansen, which some of you may know, who is a director of special education in DeSoto. We met at Greenbush, and we are able to participate in a cohort model in which other districts can serve as our outside feedback loop regarding our work with KISA. So it's a nice peer mechanism that has review efforts coming from districts that are going through similar processes. The experience, while it will be different, it was very positive, and Dr. Hansen has already kicked us off with some great feedback and perspective. On April 25th, at our academic team meeting, Ashley Troth and I revealed a draft of our goals for the next round of KISA. Each building took those goals back to their building leadership team and provided us some feedback. And after the feedback was reviewed the following goals are set for 22-23. And I will tell you, they are hard goals. It's a 5-year process, so keep that in mind. It's a 5-year process. It's definitely difficult there. Goal number 1 is to improve behaviors through social emotional learning while building on positive school culture, with the measurability on that being 90% of students would achieve a low risk within SABRS or MySABRS by the 27 reporting year. Goal number 2, to increase post-secondary success, and our measurability for that would be 80% of our students will score at the basic ability or higher on the Kansas assessments, or score 23 or higher on the ACT by the 27 reporting year. With the second measure to that, 90% of our students would graduate with 1 CTE certification or achieve 6 college credits by the 27 reporting year. The idea behind that is we recognize that these are lofty goals. And considering where you are now, growth to those goals is where we want to head, with those being our 10 points within by 2027. So over the next 5 years, we are in firm belief that the direction we'll head will be good, whether that's through the work that we're doing with Ashley and our curriculum leadership that she's providing, as well as our building efforts to provide students with the social emotional supports that they need, and the efforts taking place over at the junior and high school, junior high and the high school regarding CTE. So it's a quick and brief synopsis there. What will happen here coming next semester, the buildings will start the process of identifying their building goals. They won't be direct replicas of what we've got here, but they will be supportive in nature to that end.
So you said either one CTE full certification or
because not every student is college
Absolutely.
destined. We want to make sure that they have that ability with a post-secondary career. And so what we're looking at is the state has over 200 different certifications that you could get, and they change and update those annually. So what we're trying to do is look at what is it we are doing, what are we offering systemically so that we can increase those opportunities, as well as coming up with a CTE completion process that will help students lead towards that certification as well.
I really like that dual prong option. And some kids will get both of those.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they've got a great spreadsheet that they're working on to keep track of that.
Yeah, I think our community will appreciate that we're taking it very serious, that wanting to make sure the kids are eligible and confident to step into the workforce or to their, whatever the college they go to high school.
So,
those are big goals, though.
They are lofty.
Big goals.
They are
like big numbers.
Aim high.
So, that's right. So, and from Ashley presented last month on our CAP data. We're sitting at 74 and 75% at basic. The basic is that basic college and career readiness level. Oftentimes, people through competition feel that 3 and 4 is what's considered college and career ready. Well, KSD is very clear that it's 2, 3, and 4 is what they're trying to achieve. So I'm excited where we're heading there. So, all right, that's all I have.
Any questions about any of that? All right. I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dodge and Mr. Walsmith to discuss a confidential student matter pursuant to the exception under COMA relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting the student. And the open meeting will resume at, it's 8:53. How much time would you like?
You think, Dan, 10 minutes?
Let's say 9:04 p.m. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Executive session with Mr. Dodge to discuss an individual employee pursuant to the justification under coma for non-elected personnel, and the open meeting will resume at 9:05 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, sorry. Please say aye. Aye. Gee, thank you. 6-0. Thanks.
Well, yeah.
Different story.
Right? I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dodge to discuss the latest proposal regarding base pay rate and other negotiations items pursuant to the justification under coma for employer-employee negotiations. And the open meeting will resume at 9:10.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
It's pending teacher ratification.
Yes.
We'll call the meeting back to order and now back in public session.
I move we accept the negotiated agreement pending ratification by the teachers.
Andy has moved and Kelly has seconded to approve the agreement pending ratification of the negotiations by teachers. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. I move that we waive the late fee for notification regarding Cameron Schneider's resignation. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. And there are three, we have the personnel report supplemental and the R10 attachments that we need to approve those. I think that can all be done in one motion as part of the personnel report.
I move we approve those three things as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Phil moved, Kelly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned 9:12. Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
9:12, right?